Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our panel discussion on careers and the workplace. I'm Erica Mossholder, the Executive Director of Children's Craniofacial Association. And we're so excited to have everyone here today and joining us on Facebook, and those of you who may be watching this at a later time recorded. We want to say that the views, the thoughts, and opinions expressed in this panel belong solely to the speakers and do not necessarily represent Children's Craniofacial Association, the speaker's employers, organizations, committees, or other groups or individuals on this call. And with that, I would love to introduce our panelists. Our first panelist that we have is Leah Burton. Leah is a Los Angeles-based set designer and daytime Emmy-nominated art director for film and TV. She loves dark chocolate and is originally from the hippie state of Oregon. Growing up, she had a lot of time to watch movies while in the hospital and dreamed of making movies herself. She's now been working in her industry for 10 years and is currently set designing on the 5th season of Insecure for HBO. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have Casey Deacon. Casey is a 34-year-old in Kennesaw, Georgia, and she currently works as a grant assistant at Kennesaw State University. She has worked in grant management for 5 years, with the past 2 years being in research administration. She holds a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of Central Florida. Thanks for being here, Casey.
Good morning.
We also have Erin Richmond. Erin is a 34-year-old from Baltimore, Maryland. She's married to Kevin and they have 2 boys, Lyle and Hudson. She has her master's degree in Teacher as Leader in Autism Spectrum Disorders and a certificate of advanced study in organizational change, which would allow her to hold a leadership positions within a school system. Erin currently works at Towson University as a lecturer and supervisor to student-teacher interns in the Department of Special Education. This is her 3rd year in her current position. Prior to teaching at Towson University, she taught in Baltimore County Public Schools as a special educator for 10 years and took a 1-year sabbatical when she was accepted into the Center for Innovation and Leadership in Special Education Fellowship Program at Kennedy Krieger Institute. Thank you, Erin, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we have Bianca Moon. Bianca is an animal lover, a Dolly Parton aficionado, and a lady boss at River Song Studios. She's an Emmy Award-nominated composer, lyricist, a music producer, and part-time performance coach that lives and loves what she does 24/7 in Music City, USA, which is Nashville to the uninitiated. Thank you so much for joining us, Bianca.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, I will now describe the format and then we'll dive right in. We'll go through 4 sections of asking different questions to our panelists. Each section will last between 5 and 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up with Q&A from the audience. So thank you again for joining us, and let's just jump right in. So my first question will just go around in no particular order, or I can call on you if we get out of hand here, ladies. My first question is, did you know what you wanted to do when you were growing up?
I'll go first. Yes, I absolutely did. I remember being 4 years old and hiding behind the living room curtain and having my grandmother insisting that my grandmother introduce me as Bianca Moon, the headliner of Las Vegas. Now, I don't know at 4 how I knew what a headliner was, but I always knew that I wanted to be in the entertainment industry.
I was always one of those little girls that loved to play school. So I had my setup with my stuffed animals, and that was what I did. So I would say I definitely knew from an early age I wanted to work with children. So yeah, I definitely knew growing up.
I just wanted to help people. I never knew exactly in what capacity. It changed. Like when I was little, I wanted to be a police officer. That morphed into doing something in a hospital. And now I found my niche and I love it.
For me, I knew I wanted to work in entertainment from a young age, but I wanted to be a director, like a Steven Spielberg or something. It really wasn't until college that I even knew what a set designer or an art director was. So I think, being in college and like getting experience is what helped me like realize what I wanted to do. And now I love my job, and I'm so glad I get to do it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. It's a good representation, I think. Some people know and some people kind of find their way there. So thank you. All right. Question again for all of you. Did you know you were going to attend college, and was this an expectation from your family put on you?
It's like I always knew that I was going to college. I think I'm just very lucky. Like both of my parents went to college, so it was just sort of like, it wasn't a talk or anything. It was just like an assumption, like you're gonna go. And then, yeah, and I loved college. I had so much fun, and I learned a lot, and I'm so glad that I got to go.
I would say for me, it would also be a yes, that it just seemed natural once I got out of high school that I would go. And I did start at a community college, which helped a lot because it offered that little introduction to college life, but I definitely knew that I was going to
go. I had absolutely no idea I was going to go to college. None whatsoever. My mum and my dad were always supportive of me being in the entertainment industry, but I think my dad thought it was, something I was most probably going to grow out of. My mum and the rest of the family knew better, but my dad, I think by the time that I went to university was kind of disappointed, because he was like, you could do this and you could do that, but you're choosing to be a musician. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to be a lawyer. I find that fascinating, but it's not what I want to do. And the interesting thing was that I actually didn't end up going to college until I graduated high school when I was 17, and I didn't end up going to college until I was 17, till I was 19. So I kind of floundered around for a couple of years because I had no intention of doing it. And then I found a university in Sydney, which it's called the Australian Institute of Music, and it's kind of like Juilliard, or the Conservatorium, and I knew that was the place that I'd fit in, because it was just music. That was all that it was. And so then I did end up going to university when I was 19, but no one was more shocked than me about that.
For me, my parents were not college graduates, so it wasn't really an expectation, but I knew, as I was going through high school and knew what I wanted to do, that it was something going to college was needed, but it wasn't an expectation. And just seeing my big sister go, it kind of gave me the motivation. I wanted to give it a try, that college life a try. So.
Awesome. Thank you. That old college try. Excellent. Well, thank you all. I think it's important that we talk about the different expectations and paths, because again, not everyone just knows what they want to do. And sometimes it does take that time to really figure out what's right for you. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to move on into finding a job and interviewing. This is a big topic that we get a lot of questions about. So I'll just start with Erin, and I will ask if you have any tips on starting a job search just from where you are. Just where do you start, and what are your tips?
I think for me personally, because I was in the education field, it was a little easier because I grew up in Baltimore County and I knew I wanted to work in that district. So I just went on their website and looked for job opportunities. So I think anytime you kind of know a business, or you know an organization, or you know a school district, or a hospital, just starting at their website and looking for opportunities there. And then also your connections. If you have connections and you know people, kind of putting your name out there, and kind of seeing what might be out there. I would say those are the two big things that really helped me find my way into the field.
Excellent point. Thank you. I think that's one that I don't hear a lot of, but yeah, go directly to the organization. So thank you for that. Casey, where do you look for jobs?
It might sound kind of hilarious, but Google.
Say.
I will just do a basic search. Like with me, my industry is the grants management. So I will type in grants management jobs in Atlanta, Georgia. And it'll pop up with the results from different organizations. Another tool I use that's here more specifically for higher ed is Inside Higher Ed to find jobs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bianca, you're in a creative industry. How does finding work and projects, what does that look like for you?
It differs job to job. I mean, I am freelance the very vast majority of the time. I run my own company, and I work with. I love working with young kids doing performance coaching, but the vast majority of what I do is I work as a composer lyricist. So I'm writing music for other people. I'm writing music for film and television. And networking for me has always been the way to the way that I've got all of my great gigs. And so I'm a firm believer in being able to as my grandmother would say, toot your own horn. So, I think it's about knowing your strengths and being prepared at any minute to be like, hey, I'm the person that can do this, and this is why. Because the worst that's going to happen is people are going to go, oh, well, thanks for letting us know. Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And similar question to you, Leah. How does that work for you in your industry? And then I have a piggyback question for both of you.
Yeah, no, I love Bianca's answer because it really is like all of your jobs kind of come in different ways, but a lot of times it does end up being about like who you know, which is not necessarily like a fair thing, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Like any opportunity that you have to like meet people in your industry is really helpful. Whether like when I was starting out, I did a lot of like very, very low paid jobs and like jobs that I found on Craigslist, or like I need someone to like build a set for them. But that's how you meet people. That's how you build a portfolio. So and what she said about like being prepared. So it's like there is a lot of luck involved in this industry where it's like you're in the right place at the right time and you need the right person, but you have to be prepared to get lucky. Because otherwise you'll have those moments and you can't do anything with them. So you have to like have your portfolio ready, have something to like, tell people that you're working on or you want to do, so that way when you meet those people or you get those opportunities, you're ready to just like hit the ground running.
Perfect. And my follow-up question is, both of you kind of live in hubs of your industry. Is that something that you would recommend or you find necessary for that networking?
I definitely do. I mean, I guess now it's sort of changing with the pandemic. Like my job is remote right now. But if we're talking about like normal times, it was definitely great to be here. Even just like, I meet so many people that I end up working with at like birthday parties and like just really random things where I'm not like trying to get a job, but it's such an industry town that, the more people you meet, the more opportunities you potentially have. So I would recommend, like if you are trying to get into a specific industry that's very like geographically specific, I think it is good to be there. I don't know about right now, but like maybe that can be like an aspirational goal to like be in that city later after you get some experience or like really know you want to do that.
Post-apocalypse.
Yeah. Thinking about your post-apocalypse movie.
For me, I completely echo Leah's answer. I mean, I moved from Sydney, Australia. If you were to get the globe and actually draw a line like right through it, I'm literally living on the other side of the planet from where I grew up. Like it's kind of like the joke about, you know, drawing a line through to China, like drop a line just below China and you've got Sydney. So yes, for me it was super essential, especially because you know what Leah and I do are both very specialized parts of a specialized industry in and of itself. So, you know, it's kind of like when I used to work in Los Angeles, and Leah, you used to intern for CBS, didn't you?
Not CBS, but I've worked at CBS Radford before.
That's right. Okay, and so we had this kind of weird sort of situation where we both knew someone that worked on. That's right. Yeah, I couldn't remember what the situation was, but you know, so I started out life working in Los Angeles, freelancing for CBS, and I ended up realizing, you know, to do what I needed to do, I needed to be in even more of a specialized hub than that, which is, you know, how I ended up in Nashville. But it's somewhat the same. You know, you'll go to someone's birthday party, you'll go to someone's baby shower or something ridiculous like that, and you'll just be talking about, hey, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on this new song and I'm pitching it next week. Oh, can you send me a copy of it? I've got an artist that would like to, you know, that's looking for something about. And it really does help if you're doing something that is, you know, super specialized like that.
Awesome. Thank you. That is truly fascinating, and something that a lot of us don't understand, but also that's very encouraging to people who want to be in these different kind of industries. For the more pedestrian of us, just kidding. What would you say, Casey, is one tip when you are working on a resume? What is one thing that you advise strongly that someone should do on a resume to stand out?
So on your resume, when you're posting what your skills are, keep it short and sweet. You don't want to give yourself away too much on a resume, because it's always, you can always talk about more details later when you have an interview.
Awesome. Thank you. And do you have anything to add to that, Erin?
Know what kind of field you're going into, because there's different styles. Like obviously, like performance industry is very different from, you know, a public service type of job. So definitely look at like templates and things and have someone proofread too is always something I encourage, and I do still at 34 years old. I have my mom look at things, including my resume, and just keep it updated. Like as you just revisit it often is the other big thing I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we'll stick with you, Erin. Do you have anything that you should absolutely avoid on a resume?
I'm trying to think. That's a good question. You want to make sure that the experiences, jobs that you list make sense for what you're looking for, what field you're going into. So because like Casey said, you want to keep it short and sweet. You don't want to have all the things you've done your entire life. You want to keep it, it needs to make sense for what you're applying to. I guess would be my biggest thing. Don't include things that don't relate.
Makes sense. And Casey, do you have anything to absolutely avoid on a resume?
That's a good question. I echo Erin on that. Make sure your grammar and your punctuation's on point. like Erin said, have someone proofread it because employers will catch that.
Definitely, definitely. And we have an excellent comment. We could have had so many wonderful people on this panel, and I'm glad that Chelsea has joined in. She said, be truthful. And I think that is a very good point. Don't put skills that you do not have, because you may find yourself in a world of hurt later. Bianca or Leah, do you have anything to add, do's or absolute don'ts on resumes?
I mean, I think Erin's point about keeping it updated is really good. Especially like, I know for me, like my job changes all the time. So like I have to make sure that I'm like keeping up, because if someone is asking you for your resume, you don't want to take like 48 hours to send it to them. You want to be able to just send it right away. And same, like the bigger issue for me is like keeping my portfolio up to date, because that takes longer. So whenever you need to apply to a job, just make sure that you have it like at the ready and you can just send it to anyone who asks.
I guess for me, it's less about that sort of paper resume, although it is super important, definitely to have one of those, because every so often someone will need something like that. But for me, it's a website, and having all of that up to date and actually online, because I made the rookie mistake the other day of being like, just go check out my website, and I had completely forgotten that it was the 29th of November and it came up for renewal on the 27th, that it wasn't live, and I got this like text message being like, and it was just really, really embarrassing. So do as I say, not as I do.
That's an excellent point. And I actually love that idea of having a website. I'm seeing more and more people are doing that, even for, typical job searches. So really a good idea, and a good thought. Lots of ways to do that. But consider putting an updated portfolio and resume, work samples, no matter what kind of job you have. So thank you guys for that. And now we can transition a bit into interviews. And I will preface this by saying this was truly one of the hardest things for me in my life. I went into so many interviews and completely froze, struck out, was intentionally untruthful because I didn't even know what was coming out of my mouth. I was so nervous. And so these are true stories, horror stories of my past. But I will just say, for me, I remembered what changed it for me is someone said, you are interviewing this job to be a fit for you. They're not interviewing you. And that helped me reframe and kind of get control of my nerves in the interview process. But I was wondering if each of you could share some either do's or don'ts, or even some funny stories and how we can recover from them from your interview processes in the past.
I can start with this. One do would be to research the company and write down a couple of questions that you would like to ask them, because to me that shows that you're doing your research on the company as much as they're doing the research on you.
To piggyback off of Erica, I get very, very nervous and anxious, and I don't feel as articulate when I'm anxious and nervous. And just going into interviews was always something I had to kind of get myself in the right frame of mind. So definitely do some kind of mindfulness, I don't know, to get yourself in a spot where you feel like you are confident. You're going in there to do, just share about yourself. One of the things that helped me, because sometimes you're always thinking of what you're going to say before you know what I mean? Like they ask you the question and you're kind of already thinking about what you want to say, and you kind of lose thought of what the question was. So I think something that helped me was to reword their question into my response, or rephrase their question into my response, so that I knew I was answering what they were asking. I think that was something that always helped me. And it's kind of you're always going to have interviews where sometimes you have one or two people and it feels like a conversation, and those are always the best ones for me. But then sometimes you're going to have an interview where you have a table of 15 people, And I'll never forget one interview I had at a school. And it was literally 15 people around the table. And there was just a discussion. We're having a conversation, and like it was anything but that. It felt like a session of just them grilling me with questions, and just take a deep breath. I went out of that one crying, but it was also a learning experience at the same time. So just
sounds more like a parole hearing than an interview.
Yeah, cool. Like an elementary school physician, which you would think would be the complete opposite. But and this was after I had taught for 5 years, so I knew what I was talking about. But it was you get caught up in those tough situations.
Anybody else want to chime in on that one, or we can move to the next one?
One other point, one note I would say is don't be late.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Erin's advice too about, just thinking of it as a conversation, like those really are the best interviews. And I think they tend to be the ones where they want to hire you because it's like, oh, they clicked with you. They would like enjoy talking to you, so they would enjoy working with you too.
And I definitely don't ever advocate for, saying you can do things that you can't. But in a creative industry, you may end up getting asked to do something that's a make or break thing. And I remember, I think I was 22, and I had been asked to actually, and this didn't happen very often, but the company really liked my voice. So they asked me to cover someone else's song as opposed to using one of the songs that I pitched after they, heard me on a demo. And what was really terrifying about that was that it was a song that ordinarily I would not have sung because it was not easy to sing at all. But what I learned about myself in the process of being thrown into the studio and recording that song was that if I took a deep breath and really thought about it and knew that I wasn't getting a paycheck unless I did this to their standards, that I could actually do it. And I learned a new skill on that day that I've taken with me through the rest of my career, new vocal skill. And so I think believe in yourself. Sometimes to the point of insanity is actually healthy, especially when you do kind of off the wall things. It's sometimes it's good to go, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Don't say you're a nurse if you're not, but believe in yourself. It's good. It's healthy.
Yeah, I think like what she's talking about is something I think about a lot too, where it's like you have to have like confidence in what you can do, obviously, but also like have confidence in your ability to figure something out. If you don't already know something, like just confidence in your ability to learn, to ask the right questions or experiment. And I think once you kind of have a few times where you do something you didn't think you could do, you can kind of build that confidence. And that takes away a lot of anxiety from like interviews or finding jobs, because it's like, oh, you're actually capable of a lot of things you might not even realize you are yet.
I think that's an excellent point. And I love the manifesto on confidence, because not to belabor my experience, but I graduated in a recession and I stopped counting after 25 interviews and didn't get the job. So I was clearly not the best interviewer, but that confidence to just keep trying, because the more you do it, and especially if you ask for feedback, the better you get. And once you've done it a million times, kind of like Bianca said, to the point of insanity, you're like, well, I mean, I'm just going to do this because at this point, the outcome doesn't matter, but I'm not going to give up because I know that I can do what these employers are asking of me.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. Working on that confidence and doing it a lot. And to that end, when I realized after so many failed interviews that I was not successful, I asked some people that were not super close to me. So like not my parents, not my family members, but people that had the time and were willing. I was like, can you mock interview me? Because I think I'm doing something really wrong, and don't hold back. Tell me where I'm stumbling. And that was also a turning point for me. So thank you guys. But you also have to have the confidence to ask someone to do that, and the resilience to listen to the answer. All right, we will move on from the interviews. This does go into a question that was submitted in our chat. So if you feel like the questioner does feel like someone is really just, they automatically make assumptions about their facial difference when they walk into the interview. And I was wondering, do you, each of you, disclose that up front? Do you address it in the interview, or do you just not at all talk about it? And we'll just go around, whoever wants to jump in on that one.
I mean, I don't really like talk about anything, or like I'm not explicit about anything. Like some people can tell I have issues, some people can't, some people don't care, like whatever. But what I would say is like you can sense when someone does see something that's different about you, and when it's affecting their judgment of you, you can definitely see it. So I would say, like, when that happens, make really solid eye contact, like hold their eye, like, and it's counterintuitive because it feels so awful when someone's judging you negatively. Like, you don't want to engage, you don't want to look at them. But if you're in an interview situation, or even if you're just like at a party, hold their eye contact as like long and hard as you can, because there's something very disarming about that. And smile a lot. You know, just because smiling makes everyone more attractive, and it's also disarming, I think. And just speak confidently, and like kind of hold this expectation that they will respect you. Even if they don't in the moment, they will. And like holding that expectation, like I think most people, they want to live up to your expectations, like unconsciously. So if you can kind of like manage to hold that in your head when you're having these conversations, people will usually come around eventually. Or if they don't, you know, you don't want them anyway, so.
My, again, don't advocate doing this in a job interview, but my mum taught me to say, when she actually said to someone in a grocery store who was staring at me, would you like to take a picture? It'll last longer. So I definitely do advocate for the staring and not breaking eye contact, and just being like, yes, this is me. I think for me, in that type of a situation where what comes up, what's more important for me to disclose in a job interview where I'm going to be, it's one thing if someone, commissions a song or does something like that where it's not going to require me to turn up at a certain time. I feel what is always more important for me to disclose than any of this sort of stuff is my other health issues. I have asthma, I have lupus, I have cluster headaches, vestibular migraines, all of those sort of things. And I feel like it's really important to be honest if someone does ask the kind of question, not so much about, why we look the way that we do, but about if there's other underlying health issues, because, you can get yourself into a situation where if you're like me and you do have those issues which can belabor your work, if you aren't honest about that, then you can get yourself into that situation where you're like, oh, but you said it wasn't going to be a problem for us, and for me it very much can be a problem, which is one of the main reasons why I own my own business. So as I when I am having what I refer to as a doona day, you know, I don't get out of bed. I do stay under the sheets. I put on my mask and you know, can't tolerate the light, can't do any of that sort of stuff because I've got a migraine. If someone asks me a question, I get asked a lot in public, you know, your face is really interesting. Why do you look the way you do? And I think a lot of the time it's because people think that I have Asian heritage, or, you know, because of the way that my surgeons had to shape my eyes, just because I didn't have enough skin. I think people most of the time think it's an ethnicity thing for me as opposed to a facial anomaly. So I'm very used to that. And I've always just looked at it as a positive thing of people are interested and want to know, want to educate themselves. And I think that it's always better to look at it as a positive of I'm going to educate someone in a good way about why I look the way that I do, as opposed to someone's judging me and I have to, you know, set them on the correct path. Because it has the same outcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that perspective. I don't want to interrupt if anyone else wants to jump in. Just one that we were talking with Tim Smith from the Many Faces of Mobius recently, and he had a really good suggestion. I'm definitely paraphrasing it here, but being ready you have a canned response, but weave it into one of the questions they're asking you. So at some point, if they say, well, what is, you know, tell me a time that you've done this, and you can say, oh, when I volunteered with the Children's Craniofacial Association because I have Apert syndrome, then you can, that kind of tells them what's going on, but it's very much not like you had to say, there's something I need to tell you. So that's one way to do it. And another way, a lot of people, they give you some of those personality questions. A lot of times they say, tell me a little bit about yourself. I wouldn't say it as the first thing, but say, you know, I love music and dogs, and I have overcome a lot in my life because I had 23 surgeries as a kid. Now my health is on track and I can do anything that anyone else can do. So end it on a positive note, but somehow have the canned response and just weave it in where it fits. And so that's another great tip that I have learned from doing some of these panels. All right. If anyone doesn't have anything there, we will be moving into the next section. And our next question is about moving on up in the world and in your career path. So Casey, I was going to ask you, how do you signal that you can handle more responsibility or that you want to move up in your career, taking on a higher job position or title?
Sometimes I will present ideas for making improvements to how we do things at my organization. And sometimes I will just ask. Just recently, I went to my supervisor and I asked her, I said, can I do this? So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The structure of my organization is we have 2 grants assistants, and then we have 4 grants managers. And then we have a supervisor. So the grants managers do more of the overseeing, and then the grants assistants, we help the managers. So recently we were a little bit short-staffed, and I went to the supervisor and I said, can I do this to help out the managers? And she said yes. So I try to look for ways where I can be of more help, and I'm also asking the grants managers questions because I figured that's where I want to go. So the best way to learn is from them.
And Leah, we have a question for you. What is the biggest risk you ever took in your career, and did it pay off?
Yeah, well, so my job is it's changing constantly. It's going from show to show. And there was one time that I got a call to go art direct a movie out in Virginia and Tennessee. And I think I got the call on a Thursday night, and I was working on another show at the time as an assistant. And they were like, can you be here Monday? And so I said yes. So I went in the next day on Friday morning, and I was like, this is going to be my last day because I'm leaving to work on a different movie. And the people were like, they were so supportive. Like they knew it was like a really good opportunity for me. So they were like, oh yeah, you totally need to go. So I wrote all of them thank you notes, and then I packed over the weekend and I flew out there. And it was a crew I had never worked with before, in a place I had never been before. And it was a very strange experience, but it was a great experience. And that movie ended up being the movie that got me into the Art Directors Guild. So that really, really, really paid off. But the reason I want to tell that story is because if you want to be in like a creative field, like entertainment or arts or anything like that, pretty much everyone has at least one crazy story like that, for how they worked their way up. So I think if that's something that you're interested in, have a really open mind and like be willing to just like do crazy things like that on a moment's notice. I mean, it's not going to look the same for everyone, and not everyone maybe would feel comfortable doing that, but just be willing to like take risks and try things you've never done before. And it might be great, it might not. Either way, though, it'll be a good story, and you'll probably learn a lot.
I like to say that my mind's so open you can hear great gusts of wind just kind of blow through. Similar kind of experience. I met my producer, Kent Wells, who's Dolly Parton's producer, in Sydney years ago, back in 2012, 11, 10. Sometime around then. And he said to me, you know, as one did back then, I had my demo tape. And I was like, hey, you know, I'd love for you to listen to it. And he played it on the tour bus in between Sydney and the Hunter Valley, and sent me an email and said, I really love it. You know, if you're ever in Nashville, I'd love to work with you. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm going to be in Nashville like in the next couple of, I'd never been to Nashville, had no intention of being to Nashville. It was 14,000 miles away. I booked myself a flight because it was kind of like an open-ended invitation. And that was how I ended up coming over here and having a meeting with him, and we recorded my first EP, and that was my first real sort of professional bit of work that was me showcasing myself as an artist as opposed to me doing stuff for other people. And, you know, nearly a decade later, this is, you know, my home. And probably, I would say that I would definitely not be here if I hadn't have had the courage just to take that risk of, yeah, I'm going to be in Nashville sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those. Those are both great stories. And they're inspiring. It took that confidence and it took that courage. So thank you. We do have only about 8 more minutes. So I want to I'm going to skip over kind of the last question I had for everyone, and I'm going to challenge you all to answer that in the comments on our Facebook feed so we can keep some engagement and questions going there. So I'll post that at the end of this, but I do want to get to some of our submitted audience questions. And this one Leah has offered to answer for us. And the question is, my daughter is interested in the health professions as a career, but even as a young girl, she is aware of her facial differences and small stature. Could present a problem. Any recommendations for her, even though she's still in elementary school? So Leah, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, well, the reason I wanted to answer this question is because, I have facial difference, but I'm also very, very short. I'm 4'8". I don't have dwarfism, so I can't speak to her specific experience, but I definitely know what it's like to have people just physically looking down on you and, you know, also mentally look down on you. And it sucks. It really does. And it's definitely a real thing. They've even done studies that, you know, taller people get paid more. Like for every inch taller they are, the more they make per year. So that sucks. But what I would say is, like, there are practical things that you can do to kind of like, you know, make that less of an issue. So like if you're meeting with people, if you can meet with them sitting down so that you're at the same level and you can maintain eye contact better. The eye contact thing, it's true for interviews, but it's also true for like when you're working, when you're meeting new people, basically any life situation. If you want people to respect you, definitely try to like make eye contact with them, because it is kind of a good leveler. I also, you know, if I'm working with people that are being really condescending, I'll just be condescending back. Like you pull out all of your big words, pull out your industry lingo, like just make it a fact that like I belong here, you're gonna respect me, like I'm just as capable of this work as you are. And obviously that takes a lot of confidence. So the other thing that I would say, because if this girl is in elementary school, I'm guessing the question was really submitted by a parent, is, you know, while it is an issue, and I'm sure you're very worried about it, your real job is to just like pump your kid up. Like, because you can't really go into the world expecting to be treated badly, because when you do that, you just kind of create this self-fulfilling prophecy. And it happens to a lot of us where, you know, we grow up with like teachers or like just adults in our life that are constantly warning us about how awful the world is. And the thing is, we already know, like just by being in the world, we're very aware of all of that. So I would say maybe if you are a parent who's like worried about your kids' career or academic prospects, like don't be warning them about this. They already know that. Be pumping up their confidence. Because if they go out into the world expecting people to treat them well, a lot of people will. You know, the world is full of a lot of terrible people, but it's also full of a lot of like really great people. So I would say, like, in every situation, like just be confident that people will respect you and that you certainly deserve to be respected. And then a lot of people will actually genuinely try to live up to that expectation.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that answer. That was amazing. And I don't think I've ever heard it said like that. So I appreciate that. Next, I'm going to have Casey, then Erin answer this question. And this question is, what is a good way to teach skills, specifically starting with chores at home, for a child with a diagnosis of autism? And what age should I start teaching these skills? So Casey, then
I will say that I had to go to my mom and ask her this question, because I mean, I do have a dual diagnosis. I do have Asperger's syndrome. I do have autism. So I went and asked my mom. I said, Mom, when did you start me on chores? She said, when you were young. And she said, start them young. And I guess she started me gradually. Like, she didn't expect me to be a mopping and vacuuming expert. But I do remember growing up, I unloaded the dishwasher, I set the table. Simple things like that, and just start building up from there.
And I agree with Casey, starting young. I think making it fun, doing it together so they're not expected to do something on their own with no one else helping them. So make it fun, make it meaningful, giving them some sort of reinforcement, making it, you know, giving them a reason for why they have to do it. Like, we just because we don't want to get sick. We have to clean up our toys so nobody falls and gets hurt. I feel like making those explicit connections is really important. I think consistency is really important. So doing it the same time every night or the same every Saturday, we all work together. So just, I think, routine, consistency, any kind of reinforcement, motivator, children with autism a lot of times need that reinforcement, making them that reinforcement meaningful to them. So like they know what they want to work for, making that happen. If they do what they need to do, then they get what they first is, then they get their reinforcement. So making it meaningful.
Thank you. And we are coming up. I wish we could keep going. I have more questions. I know that we have had some interaction on Facebook, so we'll continue the discussion there. But thank you all for so very much for giving us your time, talking openly about what you've done in your lives. And I definitely want to give each of you a chance to just go around and give us one kind of closing final thought, because there are so many people out there who are struggling to find work, struggling to find meaningful work, and they feel like they're being held back. So what do you tell the people out there for just your final thought? And we can start with you, Erin.
I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was so nice to be able to share my journey. We all have very different journeys. If anyone is looking into going into the field of education, I'd be happy to share kind of my journey and experiences and suggestions. But just definitely be confident, know your strengths. We have lived a life because of our facial differences. There's so much about us that we bring to the table, and just remember that and let others know that you are forced to be reckoned with, and that, yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Bianca?
Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't. Can't is not in my vocabulary, to the dismay of a lot of people I come up against. I'm the only person that can decide that I'm not going to do something because it's not the best fit. I've always said that if one human can do something, another human can do it. You know, if that human puts their mind to it, and I truly believe that, you know, God, the universe, has put you here for a reason, and has also given you the instincts and the want and ability to do the things that are within your grasp. So trust that and you know, and follow that arrow.
Thank you. What about you, Casey? What's your closing thought?
Don't ever stop learning. Always be working on learning new skills, and don't be afraid to learn something new, because it can, you know, it can help build your confidence, but there are skills out there that can also look really good on your resume.
Perfect. And Leah, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, as cheesy as it is, it really does come down to just like believing in yourself and believing in, you know, what you can do, what skills you have, what skills you can learn. And also just, you know, knowing that you do deserve a good job, you do deserve good opportunities. And know that, like, if you are persistent, you'll get it. I think also just recognizing that rejection is just it's a part of life. It's a part of any career. So like, don't take that personally. Don't let that knock you down or keep you from continuing to try, especially now. I mean, this is a really hard time for everyone, especially people who are looking for work. So definitely don't take setbacks personally and just like keep going. Like, you absolutely deserve all the good things, and you will get them. People will respect you. People will give you what you deserve.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And the question I'm going to leave for all of you in the Facebook feed or under the video that I'd love you to all answer that we didn't get to is, I would love you to describe a time that you made a big mistake or had a setback or faced some rejection at work, and what did you do, and would you do anything differently looking back? So I'll leave that for you all to address there if you don't mind. And we'll go ahead and close out, because I know a lot of us are looking forward to some holiday fun with Camp Cosmos, which is coming up next. But again, I just want to thank you all. These are strong, intelligent, powerful women, and I'm so glad that you joined us here today to just educate and encourage us in our careers and our work. So thank you so much. And we would definitely like to reemphasize what we said: confidence and diligence. You must believe that you have value to add to a team, and you want that job to be a fit for you as well. And as we've kind of touched on, work-life balance is more important than ever right now. We're spending even a bulk of our home time working at home for some of us. So if something is not suited for you and you're in a career or job you don't like, keep looking. Like Casey said, keep improving your skills. I would add volunteer in the job that you want. It does pay off. And continue your education. Erin had spoken about that with me too, and there's so much more to say. I know that this panel would be happy to advise you, so just feel free to reach out if you would like to ask them more specific questions, and CCA will pass that along. And again, reach out if you want to talk to any of these women about their journeys in more depth. So thank you, everyone, so very much. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.